The big shift is coming. It is happening now as we speak. According to journalist David Schuster, over 100 GOP congressmen are planning to join Democrats in voting on the release of the Epstein files. Now, you might be asking, why would they do that? They haven't been in support of this the whole time. Well, it's too late. The document dumped today by the Oversight Committee shows Trump's involvement. It's as close to a smoking gun as you can get right now. And they are trying to get ahead of what's coming. They know what's coming. They see what's come out already. They have no idea what else the estate has and what could be released. And we know that Michael Wolff has got a lawsuit against Melania. He's got a lot of information. They know that it's coming. They saw what happened last week in the elections. Trump is a lame duck president right now. They are getting ahead of this and trying to distance themselves from this because it is just going to be the worst thing we've ever seen in this country. And that's just the bottom line. And that's what's happening. So let me know what you guys think about all this. Comment, like, share, spread the word. This is what a lot of us have been waiting for a long time now, and it's finally starting to happen. So be sure to check back, and I'll see you here for the 411.
Hey, so did anyone else notice that since those bombshell emails came out showing that Trump knew that Epstein was an abuser and that he himself spent hours alone with a victim, the administration has given up denying that he's in the Epstein files? After months of saying he had no idea, he wasn't involved, he stopped being friends with Jeffrey Epstein as soon as Epstein was convicted, now that these emails are out, they're not saying they're fake, they're not saying it's fake news, they're not saying that the Democrats came up with it or that it's AI, they're saying that the Democrats cherry-picked those emails to suit their narrative. Let's just start there. Is there any context that would make those emails okay? That you knew that your buddy was a sex trafficker and that you were spending hours alone in the room with a minor girl? But even if we set aside their half-baked defense, my real question is, why isn't this the only thing the media is talking about? Why aren't we seeking accountability for the fact that the President of the United States lied publicly and blatantly for months? This should be getting covered like Watergate, but because everyone has become so accustomed to him lying, it's an afterthought, even when that lie is about the trafficking of minors.
In huge news coming out of the US, yet entirely unsurprising, new emails released proved that Donald Trump spent time with a survivor at Jeffrey Epstein's house. Now, of course, all of us know that Donald Trump and Epstein were close, and he is in the files. But these emails, I don't know how he recovers from this, but this is the same man who told the entire world that when you're famous, you can do whatever you want to women. You can grab them by the you-know-what. So no one has a right to be surprised by Donald Trump acting exactly how he tells people that he acts. And 77 million people still voted for him, regardless of the way that he treats women.
I'm not surprised that he's involved. No one should be. But what's so crazy is the DOJ, Congress, and a reporter have had access to these emails for who knows how long. They're 14-year-old emails that directly state that Trump was at Epstein's house with a victim for hours and that he was the dog that didn't bark. You mean to tell me Ghislaine Maxwell lied behind closed doors to Trump-specific lawyers for a possible deal that would send her to a minimum security prison only days later, where she now lives in almost complete luxury as if it's on house arrest, and she's actively trying to get her sentence reduced while there and using the warden like a secretary? Who would have guessed? It's bad. It is so bad when those documents inevitably get released. It's going to be 400 of the 1,000 pages. Just Donald Trump's name and black. Not a single fucking thing will be allowed to be visible for the public. And also remember, this implicates Trump directly to what's going on, as well as the people who are supporting him, which includes congressional members. Mike Johnson, I'm looking at you specifically.
As we've all suspected, Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump had a much closer relationship than the White House is portraying. See, new emails released by the House Oversight Committee and reported on initially by the New York Times talks about how Jeffrey mentioned Donald multiple times in private emails. The emails include messages where Jeffrey talks about Trump knowing the girls, that he spent multiple hours with some of Epstein's victims in one of Epstein's houses. In one email to Ghislaine Maxwell, he says, "I want you to realize that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." In a separate email to Michael Wolff, he says, redacted victim Mar-a-Lago, a whole bunch of redacted. Trump said he asked me to resign. I was never a member, ever. Of course he knew about the girls as he asked Elaine to stop. In another email between him and Michael Wolff, he says, Michael Wolff responds back, "I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime." So not only did Donald Trump know about Jeffrey's victims, he also partook in time with the victims, and Jeffrey Epstein was attempting to use that, or going to use that, to gain some advantage from Donald Trump. This is as big of a smoking gun as you can get. And now the White House is saying these were selectively leaked just to make Donald Trump look bad. They're out there. They're the public record now. We can all see them.
I don't think people are aware of how significant this is with this whole Jeffrey Epstein saga. The fact that Jeffrey Epstein alleged in emails that Trump was aware of his conduct. Trump, Donald J. Trump, who spent hours at his house with one of Epstein's victims, according to the emails that Jeffrey Epstein sent that are now being obtained by Congress. These Democrats released the emails in which Jeffrey wrote that Trump had, quote, "spent hours at my house with one of the victims," among other messages that suggested that the convicted sex offender believed Mr. Trump knew more about his abuse than he has acknowledged. And by believed, I mean, I don't think that's the right word. I mean, he knew. And these messages are certain to inflame the debate on Capitol Hill over the Epstein files, which they've backtracked on. Hopefully they're going to be releasing these files, because if that's something that they already have, there must be way more.
And so it begins. Late last night, Oversight Dems have received new emails from Jeffrey Epstein's estate that raise serious questions about Donald Trump. So then Jeffrey responds and goes, "If we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be?" Wolff is like, "I hear CNN is planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in scrum afterwards. Blackmail at its finest." Now here's the third email that was released from January 31st, 2019. So Jeffrey says, "Victim Mar-a-Lago." Then that's all blacked out. Trump said he asked me to resign, never a member ever. Of course he knew about the girls as he asked Elaine to stop. Because we all know Virginia Giuffre worked at Mar-a-Lago and then was used for some other big names. So Caroline Levitt just spoke. She said in a statement that Giuffre had repeatedly said Trump was not involved in any wrongdoing whatsoever and couldn't have been friendlier to her in their limited interactions. And then she went on to say that Trump had kicked Jeffrey out of the club decades ago. People, I don't get the lore of this list. We've seen the flight logs. We know who was there. But I'm not seeing anybody else getting called out, like Bill or like hundreds of other elites. I just don't know what a list would do for you on a personal level. Really, though. And if you go and try to impeach Trump, J.D. Vance is just going to take a spot with the same exact rhetoric. None of this means anything. Pure and simple, it was a blackmail ring and people are being blackmailed. That's all you need to know.
Believe it or not, this is exactly what the media wants you focused on today. It's on every major news network site. What isn't there? The overnight House votes that took place that you really need to be paying attention to. This is what I mean when I say the files are the distraction. There were 3 key votes in the middle of the night that the press is not covering. You can't find them on anything. Even the Google searches aren't bringing them up. Number 1, Democrats put forward an amendment in the House of Representatives saying, hey, we want to use that $40 billion that you allocated to Argentina to pay for those ACA subsidies. Republicans voted it down. Next, there was an amendment that said, we want to remove that provision from the bill that would allow people who had their phones seized by Jack Smith to sue the government for $500,000. Republicans voted that down. That's kind of important, I think. Oh, and I think this is really important. Another representative put forward an amendment to say, you know what, the taxpayers should be guaranteed never to foot the bill for that tacky-ass ballroom being added to the White House. Guess what they voted? No. Is that anywhere on legacy media? Absolutely not. They want you focused on the files. That's what I mean when I say the files are the distraction for what's going on. Because you know what? Both sides are trying to hide what's really going on. The grab for ultimate power.
Breaking news. The House Oversight Committee releases emails about Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and Trump spending hours with a girl. What? Yes, this is just breaking as I speak in the last little bit. This is released by the House Oversight Committee. Here are two specific emails, and here's kind of what's going on. This email was from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. It was on April 2nd, 2011. Here's the exact email. I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned by the police chiefs, etc. We're 75% there. And I guess this is talking about where he was being interviewed by the police and saying Trump's name has never come up. Second email. This is incredible. This one is from Jeffrey Epstein to Michael Wolff. This one is January 31st, 2019. Victim, Mar-a-Lago. Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. What? I mean, they need to release all of these files. You know who is all in them. Clearly this is coming from the House Oversight Committee. These are real emails. Shows Trump spent hours with this girl and Trump knew about what all was going on. There's no way he doesn't. Release the files. I'm so tired of them covering up for Trump and for all these rich, powerful men. This has got to come out, and they've got to do, justice has to be done here. Love to hear from my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, and my burned out light bulbs. Let everybody know about this. This is just incredible. But we all knew it. We all knew this is in there. That's why they would refuse to see Adelita Rahalva for 50 days. What do you expect?
Good morning. It is Wednesday, November 12th, and the House Oversight Committee decided that they were going to wake up and choose chaos. They have released 3 new emails related to the Epstein files, and there is one in particular that I want to dive a little bit deeper on. Now, I do suggest that you go and look at all of the emails released, or, just scroll to the next video on your FYP because they might be talking about it too. But the one I want to talk about is the exchange between Michael Wolff and Jeffrey Epstein in December of 2015. So this exchange begins on Tuesday, December 15th, 2015 at 8 p.m. Michael Wolff emailed Jeffrey Epstein saying, I hear CNN is planning to ask Trump tonight about the relationship with you, either on air or in a scrum afterwards. A little bit of context, December 15th, 2015 was the date that the final Republican primary debate was held in Las Vegas, Nevada, and was aired on CNN. So at that point, Trump was still a primary candidate for the 2016 election, and that is why he was going to be on CNN and why they would have been asking him something. So then we have the same day, the December 15th at 11:52 p.m., Jeffrey Epstein responds to that email saying, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? And now this is the response that Michael Wolff sent to Jeffrey Epstein. And it says, I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say, Jeffrey is a great guy and he has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. What this email exchange is demonstrating is that, yes, Trump and Epstein had a somewhat notable relationship to the point that they felt that they, being Epstein and Wolf, needed to have a conversation about how to address that if it came up. Additionally, they seem to think that there may have been a chance that Trump would lie about having used Epstein's plane. This is well before the flight logs were released, so it wasn't confirmed at that point. But they thought it was plausible that he might lie about that. And just as a little reminder, I understand that this email exchange talks about being in the house. It doesn't say anything about the island, but again, the island was not the only place that crimes took place. Additionally, they are openly talking about using information against a potential president of the United States for personal gain. I know the majority of us are not surprised by this email exchange in any way whatsoever, but it'll be very interesting to see the mental gymnastics that comes out from certain people to try to justify this.
All right, holy shit. Donald Trump was named all throughout Jeffrey Epstein's emails, and Epstein implicates him in some pretty nasty ways. Now, the House Oversight Committee has been investigating this, has been trying to get the files released for a while, and CNN is finally reporting a story today. Quote, Epstein mentioned Trump multiple times in private emails, new release shows. The story gets increasingly bizarre as I read it, so make sure you drop a like, make sure you watch until the end, and subscribe for more. This says, Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender whose death by suicide has spawned intense scrutiny of the high-profile people he knew, mentioned Donald Trump by name multiple times in private correspondence over the last 15 years with an associate and an author in Trump's orbit, according to newly released emails from Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. The emails to longtime Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted of sex trafficking after Epstein's death, and the author Michael Wolff include conversations in which Epstein asserts Trump spent significant time with a woman whom oversight Democrats describe as a victim of Epstein's sex trafficking. So Donald Trump spent a lot of time with one of Epstein's primary victims. The emails also include a message in which Epstein asserts Trump, quote, knew about the girls, seemingly in reference to Trump's claim that he kicked Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club for poaching young women who worked there, quote unquote poaching. That's a weird word to use, but according to the newly released emails. So Caitlin Collins is the one that's breaking this story. There's a lot more to read, but Epstein says that Trump knew about the girls, and we knew this the entire time. Virginia Giuffre, who unfortunately tragically killed herself back in April, she was groomed out of Mar-a-Lago, and I believe 1999, early 2000, somewhere around that time frame. And Trump said in 2003, Jeffrey Epstein likes to party. He likes them young. Donald Trump definitely understood what was going on, and Donald Trump abused the very same power dynamics. When he owned a beauty pageant, multiple beauty pageants, and he used to walk in on these girls changing, that is Donald Trump abusing the very same power dynamics. When he says he grabs women by the pussy because they let him do it, sorry to be vulgar, those are his words. That is him abusing the exact same power dynamic over and over. But let's continue reading this. The emails were released Wednesday by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, who obtained them after subpoenaing Epstein's estate earlier this year. Trump did not receive or send any of the messages. They didn't come from him, which largely predated his time as the president. So a lot of them were from maybe 2015, 2014. But still, the connection is so clear, and Donald Trump's squirminess around this situation makes the connection even more clear, if you get what I'm saying. Every single time Donald Trump goes on camera and talks about Epstein, it makes me more confident that something weird happened. To continue, he has not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing officially. Just CNN had to point that out, which is true. He hasn't been officially accused of anything. In one email dated April 2nd, 2011, which CNN has independently reviewed, Epstein emailed Maxwell, I want you to realize that dog hasn't barked is Trump. Blank spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. Maxwell responded, I've been thinking about
the dog that hasn't barked is Donald Trump. That's what Jeffrey Epstein said in emails to Ghislaine Maxwell that were just released.
But these are emails from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. This is one from April 2nd, 2011. And in this email, Jeffrey Epstein writes to Ghislaine Maxwell and says, quote, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. There's a name that's redacted, which the House Oversight Committee has said is a victim of Jeffrey Epstein's. Obviously, we have not been able to independently confirm that because her name is redacted from this email. But they say redacted spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." Ghislaine Maxwell responds to that email, John, and says, quote, "I have been thinking about that." Now, there's no context for that message.
So two people who have been found guilty, all right, of doing unimaginable harm to children confirm that Donald Trump is a dog that has not barked. This is it. There's no more excuses, MAGA. There's no more excuses. What more evidence do you need that Donald Trump, he's not just in the Epstein files, he's in the Epstein files.
Between the two of them, and in another email, this seems to be a reference to Donald Trump saying that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club. And Jeffrey Epstein writes to Michael Wolff and says, quote, "Trump said he asked me to resign." And he adds, John, "Never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop." Now, again, we don't have the context of this email, but John, that comes as in recent months, we've heard President Trump himself and the White House say that Jeffrey Epstein was kicked out of Mar-a-Lago for being a creep. Wow. And Trump himself told reporters on Air Force One that he was trying to poach women, he and Ghislaine Maxwell, from the Mar-a-Lago spa. And that was why they had such a falling out and why he ultimately asked Jeffrey Epstein to leave the Mar-a-Lago club. Now, there's also a third email in here, John, and this is, again, in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff. And Michael Wolff emails Jeffrey Epstein, and this is back in December 15th, 2015, so the height of the 2016 campaign, just to put that in perspective for you. And it was the day of a CNN Republican primary debate. And Michael Wolff says, quote, "I hear that CNN is planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in a scrum afterwards." And Epstein wrote, "If we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be?" Michael Wolff responded at length, John. I'll summarize it, but he said in regards to Trump, "I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt." Now, I'll note, John, we looked at the transcript of that CNN debate from December 2015. There's no mention of Jeffrey Epstein in there.
Now, what's interesting about all of this has to be the timing of this right here. This means the House Oversight Committee, they've been sitting on this information for a while, and they're now choosing to do this as Congress or the House is set to get, started again after stalling for 7 weeks. This is what Mike Johnson has been trying his hardest to stop, this type of information. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And Donald Trump knows it. Now it's all starting to make sense. Donald Trump. Wow. I really don't know what to make. Actually, I know what to make of it. The dog that hasn't barked. That's Epstein validating that Donald Trump is a dog for sure. Just like him. A disgusting, filthy dog. And then you got to ask yourself, why hasn't that dog barked? And what was the victim in, reference? What was the victim doing with Donald Trump all by themselves? Make it make sense. But yeah, it was clear Epstein was able to blackmail Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was paranoid about that. That's why things played out the way they played out in Donald Trump's first term with Epstein. And now we're on the verge of watching him about to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, who that email was sent to. It's like Governor Gavin Newsom has been saying, especially you Trump supporters, wake up. The jig is up. We all know what's going on now. You can't hide it.